Hello everyone! Today we're going to be talking about a very awesome topic in science. What is it you might ask? Soil! So I have a question for you guys. Can anyone think of another word for soil? I think those words are awesome. I definitely think of dirt, and I also think of mud. Does anyone else think of mud? Mud is just wet soil to me. Okay, so to get our brains working just a little bit and to gather some knowledge on soil, we're going to read this book. Dirt, The Scoop on Soil. This book will contain key vocabulary words that you need to pay attention to and awesome pictures to make sure that the words match the pictures and what they're describing about soil. So let's read. Okay, so what did everyone think about this book? Yes, the pictures are absolutely awesome, and they describe exactly what they're trying to tell us about soil. We talked about what dirt was made of, how it's alive, remember? And also how things depend on dirt every single day. So, now I want you to turn to a partner and discuss one thing that you learned, just one thing out of any part of the book that you learned. I loved all of your responses. Thank you so much for sharing and participating. So now we're going to go on a little bit of a review. First thing we're going to do is talk about the layers of soil again, just to make sure we have a clear understanding. So, the first layer is humus. That's right. Humus contains things such as fallen leaves, sticks. It is the less dense, which means not heavy, material on the very top layer of the soil. The second layer is clay. We know clay. We see how vibrant and colorful it is, and it's really compacted, which means it's very put together, meaning that it's hard to separate. Sometimes it's hard to dig up. That's why you see this at construction sites. You have to have big bulldozers and tractors to be able to move the soil, clay, from one place to another so you can build buildings and stuff. The third layer is silt. Now remember, silt is very, very small particles but put together to where it's more dense, more heavy, right? So silt is the middle part of the soil, and I have an awesome picture to show you guys on when I went on vacation to West Virginia and saw an uprooted tree. This tree had silt and soil and dirt all attached to it, even though it uprooted. Now, don't you think the dirt or soil would just fall back to the ground instead of going with the tree? Why do we think it stayed with the tree? I think it's because the roots from the tree dug in so deep to the ground through different layers of soil and reached silt, and since it's so compacted with all these tiny layers, when the tree decided to come up, the silt came with it. So I think that's an awesome example, and it compares to real life, like we were doing in the book. The fourth layer of soil is sand. We already know about sand. We think of the beach when we think of sand, and sadly, since it's getting a little too cold to be there right now, let's just visualize for a second. So you see the sand here in the front and the awesome ocean, blue water, and we think, I'd like to build a sand castle right now. Trust me, I would too. Sand is very easy to bring together and stay together, but whenever water rushes up onto it, it has open particles throughout, meaning that it's easy to collapse. So, sand being the fourth layer is very dense, but it's easy to collapse because all the holes. And that's a fun fact about sand. Sand castles, you want to stay away from the water. The final layer, the fifth layer, is rocks and pebbles. See, you already know. Rocks and pebbles are the most dense, the most heavy layer of soil. That's why it's located at the bottom. When we think of rocks and pebbles, however, what do you think of when you think of the word mountain? We know what mountains are, right? Very big, very tall, that stick up out of the ground. But do we think of that or consider that as rocks and pebbles? As a layer of soil? I think so, because even though mountains are very tall and they're sticking out of the ground, they're big rocks, huge rocks that also break down over time into smaller pieces of rock. So I definitely think that mountains can be in the conversation of soil. Is that not cool? It's alive! It's alive! Remember talking about bugs, worms, living organisms that reside in the dirt? They live in the dirt all the time, and even though you sometimes see worms coming out of the ground, that just means they need air. That doesn't mean that they're not living in the dirt. Dirt is so important, or in other words, crucial, to make sure that bugs and beetles and also bigger animals have shelter and room to survive. So when we think of dirt, we think of, okay, well, we don't live in the dirt, so it's not important. It's absolutely important for the survival of worms, beetles, and other living organisms such as rabbits, who also dig down into the dirt to create nests for them and their babies. So think about that when you think of soil not being important. Okay, everyone, it's time for an experiment. So what we're going to do is gather around. Watch very closely. What I'm about to show you may blow your mind. First off, we have this jar of soil. It's a mason jar, and you can use any type of jar or clear cup as long as you can see the soil. So you've got different layers. If you can see here, we have grass, I see some rocks and pebbles, and we've got definitely a bunch of little particles of soil. And I think I see some clay too, some red, vibrant pieces through there. So we're going to set that aside. We also have a cup of water. And what we're going to do is see if we can see the layers of soil when we pour this water into this cup or glass of soil. So let's try it out. Here you can see the soil and the water. And normally this will take an hour to really settle, so we will have another activity that will help the time pass by. But for now, we will go ahead and mix. So I will carefully pour the water into the cup of soil. Okay, so the more water you use, the better it will be to see the soil. Now, we are going to mix it up. Now, when we see this, we can see, you can't see anything. It's just kind of cloudy and brown and messy. So what we're going to do is set this to the side while we move on to our next activity. Okay, so we're about to do something super fun while we wait for the soil to do its thing. We're going to go outside. Doesn't that sound fun? I'm ready for some fresh air. What you're going to need is a plastic spoon, just one per person, so you can dig around in the dirt. That's right, we're going to get dirty today in the dirt. And what we're going to be looking for while we're outside is things to draw onto your worksheet. To describe what you see in the soil and think about what you're going to write down about what you see. Okay? So, let's go outside. Did everyone have fun in the soil? Yes, I did too, and I found some cool things. I hope you did. Does anyone want to share? Those are all great examples, and I'm so glad that you used drawings and words. What I decided to draw was this flower. I decided to draw this flower because I noticed that there was a very big blossom flower, and then attached to it was a flower that hadn't blossomed yet and was just a little tiny bud. And I was like, that's very interesting, right? So I decided to draw it. And I'm so glad that everyone drew different things. I saw someone even found a worm. That's so cool. So just a quick review. We're going to go over what soil benefits, starting with animals. We talked about animals like rabbits being the bigger animals, and then beetles and bugs and worms for the smaller ones. Soil benefits all these things by keeping them safe, giving them a home, and also giving them food resources, because what grows out of the ground? Plants for them to eat. Speaking of plants, the soil also benefits plants. Even though they're a food resource, they also need soil to even grow and survive. Start with a seed. You have to have water, sunlight, and soil, of course, for these plants to be able to grow big and strong and to benefit animals and even us. Okay, so what we're going to do now is put our new knowledge to the test and take time to fill out this word bank worksheet. When you're done, please turn it in. Okay, so now we're going to go back to our jar. It's ready to investigate. Let's get to it. Okay, so as you can see here, we have 3 visible layers of soil. Once again, that we can see. Okay, we know that there are 5, but right now we can see that here's the humus layer of soil, and I can also see grass and sticks all over the top. That's amazing. And then we have this kind of thin layer right here, and I want to say that that is a mixture of clay, because look, you see your vibrant color, clay particles that dissolved into the water, and I also see some bigger pieces of grass of the humus layer, so they're all kind of merging right here. But then at the bottom, I'm seeing some rocks. I'm seeing some rocks, and I'm seeing, I don't know if I see pebbles. Rocks and pebbles are very similar, but I'm seeing some more compacted layers of soil down here. So you can see right now, just here from North Carolina, we have 1, 2, 3 layers. There's probably more in other parts of North Carolina, but across the whole United States, we definitely know that we could find all 5 layers. I think it's amazing we found these 3. Isn't this neat? So looking at our jar, we found out that we saw 3 different layers of soil, but I want to ask you, did they look all the same as one another, or do they look different? Yes, they absolutely look different. Compared to the size and to the colors, we noticed that the bottom layer was probably the darkest, and it wasn't the most, but it was the second most size-wise in the layers of soil. We noticed the middle part was the biggest, and it was a lot lighter than the other 2 layers that we found. And the humus at the top, we could definitely tell that it was dark, but you could see the grass and the sticks off the top of it, so they definitely did not look the same as one another. Okay, so final review. We're going to go over from the very top layer to the bottom layer of the 5 layers of soil. So I want you to yell out the layers of soil as I call the number. So what is the first layer? What is the second layer? How about the third layer? And the fourth layer? This is a tough one. Finally, the fifth layer. Great job, everyone. I'm so proud of you. I think we learned a lot today, don't you? I definitely know now that soil is not just something we walk on, it's something that benefits or helps us, animals, and plants, and so many other things in this world. And the different kinds come from different places. I didn't know that before. I never knew that there were 5 different types of soil. I think now we can take from this lesson and realize that soil is so cool. Thanks for being such great students and listening and participating.